This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
Gary, how are you? Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Altar Bard. Thank you for accommodating me this morning. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm well, Mark. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Did I send you a winner of the week?
You did not, but we're down to tiny sizes and we're waiting on our restock. So I think that might be for the best.
Okay, so we'll just put this out there. What tiny sizes qualifies as what?
Small and maybe one medium, something like that.
Okay, so the first and best comment that wants a small or a medium while we're waiting for restock, we will just pick and send this immediately upon the conclusion of this taping. How's that?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay, got it. And I'm going to leave that in your good hands. I mean, I'll participate in the selection.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who might not be aware, we're talking about people who watch on YouTube at youtube.com/reasonable doubt podcast and leave a comment there. I will say that historically making fun of me has been successful, but also, just positivity. Mark is wily. You never know how Mark's going to be feeling on a Sunday afternoon. So do your best in the comments and maybe you'll get some swag out of it.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a beautiful day today. It's a spectacular weekend, and as I often say to clients, if your kids are healthy, if everything is going well, or as my mother used to say, if it's only about money, then don't let it affect you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been enjoying this beautiful weekend. I was out in the Redondo Beach area yesterday, and right as the party I was at started to end, the sun poked through and we got a beautiful view of the ocean. So happy, healthy, and no complaints on my end.
Good. And I've got a friend who's going behind the orange curtain today to do her gender reveal. So I may comment on that next week as well. It's quite a lot going on. But where do we start? Since we're here in California, for those of us who are California natives like me or residents like me, our governor, coming on the heels of the most recent U.S. Supreme Court decision, which basically, for those who aren't in the weeds, there was, when it comes to homeless encampments, there was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals opinion, which had not been appealed to years ago, and I think it was out of either Washington or Idaho.
It was Oregon, actually. City of Grants Pass v. Johnson is the case in question.
But that's the new one.
That's the new one. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that is a new one.
Correct. The old one, which was used as kind of the reason for allowing the encampments to remain and not being able to do anything.
That one was out of Idaho, Martin v. Boise.
Right. What year was that?
That one was 2018, but the cases go back to the 70s and even the 60s in the underlying cases. It's quite extensive. I've been reading all morning and
Okay, so good. So you're in the thick of it. The Idaho case was 2018, and that was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, correct?
That is correct.
Which nobody took to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Also correct, yes.
Yeah. This case, Grants Pass, was taken to the U.S. Supreme Court, decided when?
It was decided in 2024. Let me see if I can find the month here. But yeah, it was decided earlier this year in, April. No, it was argued in April and it was decided June 28th, 2024.
So almost exactly a month ago.
Exactly a month ago. Today, as we record, is July 28th. So yeah, 1 month.
Okay. And so our fearless leader here in California did what?
Well, he tweeted. So why don't we just go ahead and watch that?
I don't think there's anything more urgent and more frustrating than addressing the issue of encampments in the state of California. Over the course of the last number of years, the state has stepped up, where in the past we provided no support, no resources to cities and counties to clean up encampments like this. Today, we've invested now over $1 billion in encampment resolution grants, not only to clean up sites like this, but to address the underlying issue in the first place. One of the big issues, though, that has been an impediment was the courts. In the past, the courts have denied the ability for local government, including the state, to clean up many of these encampments. Today, I announced an executive order to move the process forward. We're done. It's time to move with urgency at the local level to clean up these sites, to focus on public health and focus on public safety. There are no longer any excuses. $1 billion this state has invested to support the communities to clean up these encampments. We have now no excuse with the Supreme Court decision. This executive order is about pushing that paradigm further and getting the sense of urgency that's required of local government to do their job.
First of all, what political consultant told him that hand movement is key in communicating? I mean, he is so animated with his hands in that whole video. I got a lot of criticism for not commenting on Governor Newsom the last time that we brought him up on this podcast, and I will tell you, I have no shortage.
By the way, you took a shovel load of comments. Why was that?
I can't speculate on why people comment the way they do. I saw a lot of speculation that it was because I was all of a sudden a supporter of Gavin Newsom. That is incorrect. I decided to live by something my mother has told me for a long time, which is if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I decided to stay out of the fray on that one. But I can tell you that it's certainly not because I'm a fan of Gavin Newsom, and I will have no shortage of opinions on this particular episode.
The interesting thing about this, for those of you who have watched and listened to RD for, what are we, Gary, over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You and me, Adam,
the collective RD,
have been arguing for, I don't know, at least 6 or 7 years that the idea that this was a housing situation, or the idea that this was primarily because there was no housing, or the idea that you would be vilified if you talked about the component that had to do with mental health, or the component that has to do with the scourge of fentanyl or meth or
addiction in general.
Addiction in general, something that we have talked about when we've had guests on and with Dr. Drew. It is amazing to me the sea change that has taken place, because when we started talking about this, there were lots of people vilifying the idea that this was anything but a housing issue. I mean, you old enough to remember that, Gary?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's look, let's not pretend that housing prices in California are not a little bit ridiculous compared to maybe the rest of the nation, but that does not mean that is
beyond ridiculous.
Yeah,
right.
They absolutely are, and that does not mean that is the root cause of these problems. And anyone who, if I wasn't a believer before, you moving me down to Engine Company in downtown has brought me all the way back around, because it takes nothing but a short visit to downtown Los Angeles. And we work rather in the nice part of downtown. The parts that I drive through to get there are the parts that'll really start to give you fever dreams.
Well, and you take a look at what has been allowed to happen. And I echo Drew's comments a lot. You're not doing anybody any favors. I mean, the back alley, which I have labeled Fentanyl Alley, not a month goes by, sometimes not a week goes by, that somebody doesn't die in the alley. And there's one of those tents that come over and they have to close the alley because they're taking somebody out. You're not doing anybody any favors.
And I'll go a step further. I mean, you can't sit in one of those offices that border that alley for more than an hour to see 3 or 4 people doing something that is of risk to their life. Now, they don't always succumb to those results, but there is just a rampant problem with the things that are allowed in and around our office. And it's very sad to see and disconcerting, to say the least.
Yeah. And so I guess you've got a couple of choices. Do you stay and try to make it better, which is what we've that's our line in the sand, or do you flee? A lot of people have fled. I just don't buy into that, if you will. I think that for whatever reason, better late than never, at least Newsom now is going to, rather than, and I laugh about this, we've committed $1 billion, how many times have people heard that we've committed this resource, we've committed that resource? But I will give the current mayor of LA credit that the encampments, I've been driving, I drive downtown every day. So there are encampments. They are getting cleaned up. It's about time. It's not doing anybody any favors, the people who are there included, or mostly.
Yeah, especially those people who are there. And, the current mayor, Mayor Bass, came out and criticized Governor Newsom's announcement. I'm not particularly a fan of the fact that he's taken so long to do this, but I will give him credit that he is now finally doing something. Whatever his motives are, let's leave that,
Yeah, I didn't see the criticism. What did she say? Or do you summarize it?
Yeah, she basically said that it was unnecessary because she's been so successful in eradicating homelessness. And that just is laughable at best. So I, wasn't a fan of that particular spin that she put on it, but whatever. The fact that something is being done is a net positive, even if, you have to kind of put your blinders on and think about the number of billions that he has committed to establishing low income housing in the past 5 or 6 years, which doesn't seem to have done anything. But whatever, if he's come and finally seen the light and is deciding to hide behind this Supreme Court ruling and use it as a justification to finally get something done in this state, then I'm okay with it.
Very good. Why don't we go from that issue to one out of Ohio? You want to know which one I'm talking about?
I don't. I'm sorry. I'm
boneless chicken.
Chicken wings and chicken fingers and boneless chicken wings. Yeah, this is a fun one that our researcher Brett helped us out with. That is an interesting ruling that I think is rife for discussion.
Yeah, and so I think we've talked before about the McDonald's hot coffee case, and I think I would like to just set the stage, because when you talk about the McDonald's hot coffee case, people often mischaracterize what really happened in that case. I mean, there was horrific injuries in that case.
Third degree burns. And that case is
skin grafts. And, it's always kind of the caricature is somebody spilled hot coffee and, then sued McDonald's and won a bunch of money because they spilled hot coffee. That is at best, you can say, a simplistic rendition. This case has similar kinds of, urban myths around it. And
it does. And with the McDonald's case, you think back to the infamous Seinfeld, characterization of that case where Kramer spills coffee on himself and Jerry retorts, coffee's supposed to be hot. Kramer goes, not that hot. So the Supreme Court, the Ohio Supreme Court case that you're talking about ruled that a man who ordered boneless wings should have expected bones to be in them. He had ordered wings at a place called Wings on Brookwood in Southwest Ohio. He'd cut the wings into thirds and he was eating them. The first two pieces he ate normally. The third one felt like it went down the wrong pipe, so to speak. And doctors initially, it punctured his esophagus. And eventually the doctors found that a 1 3/8 inch chicken bone had been lodged in his throat. So the Supreme Court went on to rule that any reasonable person should expect that boneless chicken wings should have bones in them, similar to anyone who orders chicken fingers would not assume that they are actually eating fingers.
So it's not like this person didn't have legitimate injuries, at least by the rendition, perforated esophagus and understandably. But, the caricaturization is I'm suing because I ordered boneless chicken wings and I had a speck of a bone in there and blah, 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 is not actually the factual predicate for that decision.
No, I would say 1 3/8 is larger than most boneless chicken wings that you order in general. So this gentleman was getting a healthy serving size, and shout out to Ohio for doing it big. But that's a lot of bone to be hidden in a
right. And I don't know that that if I were to order a boneless chicken wing, I always think of the McNugget style, that I would expect because it's called chicken, that when I bite into it, it may have a bone. I don't know that that's my expectation. Do you have that?
I know for sure that that's not my expectation. If I only order a boneless chicken wing, I'm expecting a nugget. Regardless of the size or shape, I am not expecting anything but chicken meat to be in that.
Yeah. And I think part of the language in the opinion was, well, you're eating meat, you should expect bones.
That's exactly right. Common sense dictates that the presence of bone fragment in meat would occur.
Yeah, no, a fragment I understand. I mean, if the facts of this case were during the grinding process where you process the chicken in order to make the, for lack of a better term, the patty that becomes breaded and becomes the nugget, that there's some fragment of bone that is, of some kind of, I don't want to say minuscule, but of a size that you would expect. An inch and 3/8 or whatever.
Inch and 3/8. I think I'll set my allowance at about half an inch. And I think that's generous. I think, 1/4 inch to half inch. Okay. We can account for the fact that nothing's perfect and that, things slip through. Inch and 3/8. That's too big.
I tend to agree. And it's not like this guy was complaining about the fact I bit on a bone and broke my tooth. I mean,
tore my esophagus.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not an insignificant situation when you're eating boneless chicken wings. And the way it was described, at least, if you believe the factual summary, is there was an instantaneous reaction, tried to vomit out. I mean, it sounded like a serious situation.
Yeah, it did. And the court's opinion included the language, any reasonable consumer should have been able to find it. I suppose, but that doesn't seem quite reasonable to me.
Not at all. So rounding it out, do we have one more story before we go that you want to talk about?
Sure. I mean, I just love the fact that CNN doesn't apparently have anyone on their staff who can do math. And for those who aren't watching, and please do watch and subscribe, youtube.com/reasonable doubt podcast. Mark sent me this still from when he was watching TV a few nights ago. And it says a choice for president among registered voters in Minnesota. And it has Donald Trump at 52% and Kamala Harris at 49%. And for anyone who doesn't have their abacus handy, that is more than 100%, folks.
You have to say, I mean, I find it funny, but I actually, as watching, went back 2 or 3 times to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind.
Yeah, I can tell here because in the lower right, you can see the pause button. So Mark has clearly backed it up just a bit to make sure that he got it right. And the quip that he sent along with this photo to me was quite humorous and made me laugh. I was driving at the time, but when I finally got home and checked my phone, I chuckled quite a bit. So, yeah. Check your math out there, ladies and gentlemen. This will make you look very stupid if you're an international news network. So be careful.
Wow, I love it. Thank you, Gary. What a great Sunday. I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mark. I look forward to seeing you then. You have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/reasonable doubt podcast.